The Galactic Council's Educational Directive 7743 was clear. Human combat techniques were strictly prohibited in all military academies across the 7 spiral arms. Commander Veltrax of the Azurian Empire had always found this regulation peculiar, almost insulting to a species that had been inducted into the Council only 3 decades prior. Today he would understand why. The incident began innocuously enough. Cadet Marcus Chen, the only human in the prestigious Valorian War Academy, sat in the back of Advanced Combat Theory, his datapad flickering with notes. Around him, cadets from a dozen species. Azurians with their crystalline exoskeletons, gaseous Nephilim contained in pressure suits, towering Krolvian warriors, all listened as Instructor Kixtal droned on about proper engagement protocols. The optimal strike zone for a Krolvian opponent, Kixtal's tentacles gestured at the holographic display, is the 3rd cervical vertebra. A precise energy burst here results in immediate neural shutdown with minimal collateral damage. Marcus raised his hand. Instructor, what if energy weapons are unavailable? The classroom fell silent. Kixtal's photoreceptors dimmed in confusion. Unavailable? Energy weapons are standard issue for all galactic military personnel. But hypothetically, Marcus pressed, what if they malfunction or you're captured without equipment? Kixtal's tentacles twisted in what his species considered polite dismissal. Then one would surrender honorably and await diplomatic exchange. This is standard protocol, Cadet Chen. Surely you reviewed the primer materials. I did, sir. Marcus leaned back in his seat. It just seems limiting. The Azurian cadet beside him, Zelnora, whispered through her translator chip, what do you mean limiting? These are the engagement rules developed over 10,000 years of civilized warfare. Marcus didn't answer. He'd learned in his first week that arguing with doctrine only brought trouble, but trouble found him anyway during the practical examinations. The combat simulator was a marvel of technology, a room-sized holographic chamber that could replicate any battlefield scenario with painful accuracy. The exercise was straightforward. Disable the opponent using approved techniques. Lethal force was prohibited. Honor was mandatory. Marcus faced Krolvan, a senior cadet who stood 9 feet tall, covered in dense muscle and natural armor plating. The Krolvian grinned, showing rows of serrated teeth. This would be, he assumed, embarrassingly quick. The simulation began. Krolvan charged forward with textbook form, his massive arms extended for the regulation restraint hold. Marcus didn't retreat. Instead, he stepped inside the Krolvian's reach, dropped below the grasping arms, and drove his elbow into Krolvan's knee joint, a spot where the armor plating naturally separated. The Krolvian stumbled, confused. That wasn't in the manual. Before Krolvan could recalibrate, Marcus had moved again. His palm struck the Krolvian's throat, not hard enough to crush, but precise enough to trigger the involuntary gag reflex. As Krolvan's hands instinctively moved to his throat, Marcus swept his legs and used the giant's own momentum to send him crashing to the floor. 3 seconds. Total. The hologram flickered off. Silence engulfed the observation deck. Commander Veltrax stood frozen, his crystalline structure actually refracting light in patterns that indicated severe distress. Beside him, Instructor Kixtal's tentacles had gone completely rigid. What? Veltrax's voice crackled through the intercom. Was that? Marcus stood at attention. Hand-to-hand combat, sir. Basic defensive techniques. There was nothing basic about that, cadet. Kixtal's voice rose in pitch. You struck vulnerable biological points. You used the opponent's mass against him, You didn't follow any approved engagement protocol. No, sir. I used what works. Within the hour, Marcus Chen sat in Commander Veltrax's office, surrounded by the Academy's entire senior staff. Holographic displays showed replays of the combat from multiple angles. The academics watched with the same horrified fascination one might reserve for watching a star collapse. Explain, Veltrax commanded, where you learned such techniques. Marcus shrugged. Earth, sir. It's just fighting. We have hundreds of martial arts systems. Krav Maga, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, Sistema. This was pretty tame by comparison. Tame? A Nephilim professor's gaseous form swirled in agitation. You exploited biological weaknesses. You used pain compliance. You treated combat as if there were no rules. Because in real combat, Marcus said quietly, there often aren't any. The room erupted in protests, but Veltrax raised a crystalline hand for silence. His ancient eyes studied the human cadet with new understanding and new fear. Cadet Chen, I need you to be completely honest. If that had been a real combat situation, not a simulation, what would you have done? Marcus met his gaze steadily. If my life was truly in danger, sir, I would have targeted the eyes first, then the throat, then broken the knee permanently. After that, depending on the threat level, there are approximately 47 lethal strikes I could have employed against Krolvian physiology. The silence that followed was absolute. Veltrax turned to his staff. Get me the Galactic Council immediately. The emergency session was brief. After reviewing the combat footage and listening to Earth's military attaché explain the concept of fighting. Dirty, the Council voted, unanimously to amend Directive 7743 Human. Combat techniques weren't just banned from being taught. Now humans were restricted from participating in combat simulations entirely. Their approach to warfare, the Council declared, was fundamentally incompatible with civilized military doctrine. Marcus Chen was transferred to a research division, where his unique perspective could be utilized without traumatizing alien cadets. He didn't complain. He'd proven his point. But in the quiet moments, Veltrax would replay that 3-second defeat of a Krolvian warrior and wonder, what kind of species had the Galactic Council allowed into their midst? What kind of world produced beings who saw every vulnerability as a target, every rule as a suggestion, every fight as a battle for survival? Earth, he realized with creeping dread, hadn't sent soldiers to the stars. They'd sent survivors. And survival, unlike honor, had no rules at all.